So today's topic, I want to start with your feedback because, and you'll understand why as I get to the topic of discussion. But before influencing you at all, I'd like to get your feedback on why is it in your mind that you're doing this functional medicine care plan that you're doing. What is the purpose in your mind for you doing this? And Janine, you can go ahead first.
Okay. Well, I had been reading about it, and I heard that Cleveland Clinic had a huge group that was doing it, and I said, you know, at this age, I just want to get optimal health as best I can. So where's a good place to spend my money? So that's what I'm going for, optimal health.
Excellent. And do you mind sharing what age you're talking about?
I'm a 76.
Okay, good. Thank you. And that will be relevant here as we go.
Yep.
So good. Thank you for your feedback. And Mary, in your own words, why are you doing functional medicine? What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, I am only 33 and I have 2 children, and I want to be able to enjoy them as long as I can. I have a lot of strong family history, and I just see what conventional medicine does for them, and I don't want to take that approach. I've always been a more natural person, and anything that is more natural that can heal me, I would rather do that, and I want to feel better to live a happy, long life.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. Now, the reason I was asking that question will be apparent here in a minute, but I think you both answered it well in terms of obviously you want short-term relief from your individual issues that you both sought out care for, but at the same time you both hit on something key, and that was having quality of life for as long as possible into life. And you know, if American healthcare was achieving that, then 100% of people asked wouldn't be bringing that up, because if American healthcare was providing that, we would just assume we would have that later, and that's not what we have. And so since 1980, there's been this concept called morbidity compression out there, or compressing morbidity. And it was put out by a doctor from Stanford named James Fries. And I'm going to share a study by him with you today to help you better understand the concept, because I think it's very important and it's what we're all after. He just uses a nerdier term to name it, but basically compressing morbidity is what he says should be the goal of American healthcare. And from 1980 forward, this has been his mantra. And basically, the reason it was important in 1980 and is still important today are these concepts of morbidity and mortality. Now, mortality means death, right? So we're all going to die. We're not going to stop that. But we can influence how long we live before we die and the quality of life in our years before we die. So age of mortality is one thing. The other measure is morbidity. And morbidity could be defined as the amount of suffering in, say, quantity of time before you die, or the loss of quality of life and function that you have to deal with before you die, and how long is that time period. So if the number for the United States is disability sets in around the age of 55 on average. So that age of 55 is kind of the line in the sand where disability really ramps up. And so disability is going to decrease quality of life, decrease your functionality. And if you notice, it's before retirement. And so many people don't live those golden years like they envisioned, for those decades that they envisioned it while they were saving their money to have a retirement and live on the beach, right? So if we can decrease the number of years that we have morbidity, then life will be better. And so the compression of morbidity hypothesis states that most illness is chronic and occurs later in life. And it's postulated that the lifetime burden of illness could be reduced if the onset of the chronic illness could be postponed, and if the postponement is greater than increases in life expectancy. So in other words, the goal is to increase the amount of quality of life in our years. Why is that important? Well, I think this graph shows us, or this picture shows us. You know, conventional medicine you'll see articles all the time that the advancements in conventional medicine have led to greater life expectancy in Americans. And that can be misrepresented as the advancements in conventional medicine have led to improved quality of life for longer in Americans. And that is how it's misrepresented, because that's not true. Yes, we've had advancements that keep us alive longer, but I could be put on a respirator at 75 and kept alive by that respirator till 85, but my quality of life in those 10 years was garbage, right? So I was basically the living dead. And so this graphic is showing us an example of what we're talking about today. The present morbidity here shows that morbidity or disability, loss of function, loss of quality of life starts on average around 55, but the average American lives to about 76, or this study is from 2003, so that was the numbers then. And so you can see the last 21 years of life, you have increasing morbidity, or a rapid increase in the loss of quality of life up until the point you die. So if we could compress that morbidity, then we can improve the quality of our life, the quality of the years before we die. So you could extend life, which is what this second piece of the graph looks like. Life extension is what conventional medicine does. It takes you from 55, and instead of dying at 76, you'll die at 80. So they'll say, well, you lived 4 years longer. Yes, but if you lived 4 years longer and your disability just continued to increase for those 4 years, your quality of life wasn't improved. You just lived longer with suffering. And that's called the failure of success. Okay, so as medical progress increasingly prolongs life, the extra months and years would be spent in poorer health, and that's been termed the failure of success. So we don't want to live longer because of the failure of success. We don't want to live longer suffering. We want to live longer with quality. So another option could be if you shift your life to the right. For example, instead of disability setting in at 55, it sets in at 60, and instead of dying at 76, you die at 81. Basically, you didn't improve quality of life, you just delayed when disability set in and lived a little bit longer, but you had the same amount of morbidity as the person that suffered from the 55 to 76 years. So the last graphic here, the bottom one, the compression of morbidity, is what we want. We want to delay the onset of loss of quality of life, delay the onset of morbidity or disability or loss of function. So instead of being disabled at 55, can we live till 65 before it sets in? And that way we added 10 years of quality of life to our life. And then at the same time, does that 10 years of health add years to our overall lifespan? So can we live to 78 instead of 76, right? So we only had 13 years of suffering from 65 to 78. So we had compressed morbidity and we had delayed mortality. How do we do that? Well, the studies show that the access to care, so the access to medical care and the access to prescription drugs, do not play a role in that, or have not played a role in that. What has played a role in compressing morbidity is health habits, okay? So lifestyle. And multiple studies have tracked this, and what they found is that improving lifestyle and decreasing health risks adds life to your years, from a factor of around 8 years in one study to up to 13 years in another study. So if we're exercising, if we're practicing proper nutrition, if we're not smoking, if we're surrounded by loved ones, all of those things are going to compress our morbidity so that we get more life in the years that we have. We have more quality of life and less suffering. And that's what we're trying to do with functional medicine. Health risk improvement is the most promising single approach to accelerating compression of morbidity. The most prevalent conditions of later life are osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, depression, isolation, Alzheimer's disease. So all of these things yield or receive great benefit from a functional medicine paradigm of care. And so if we can delay the onset of these things or catch these things sooner before you have full-blown diagnosis of these things, we can prevent you from maybe ever reaching full diagnostic criteria. So we're preventing full-blown suffering from these diseases, compressing morbidity, improving quality of life. So another way to look at this would be that from a financial perspective, right? So, some would say that functional medicine care is expensive, but think about the price of an emergency care visit. Think about the price of a surgery. If you are undertaking a lifestyle that is decreasing your health risks, keeping you healthy, and say a functional medicine lifestyle decreased your number of hospitalizations by 1 or 2 times in your lifetime, or decreased your number of surgeries by 1 or 2 in your lifetime, you more than paid for your functional medicine care for life. So not only would you benefit from a quality of life standpoint, but the healthcare system as a whole, the economy as a whole, you as an individual economically benefit by being proactive and preventative. So I think the concept of compressed morbidity is what we're doing with functional medicine. So when I opened by asking that question today, yes, we are acutely dealing with your short-term concerns about decreasing anxiety or improving MS symptoms or whatever it is the complaints are. But as we've spoken about, my goal isn't to just help you short-term. My goal is to co-create the lifestyle with you that works for you long-term. So you're not dependent on me forever, but you can go spread your wings and continue to build momentum and implement with consistency the things that you implemented to receive your short-term gains, implement those things for the long term so that you can compress morbidity, have quality of life, save in healthcare expenses, and hopefully delay mortality as well. So that's compression of morbidity. That's the topic for today. And I'll open it up to any questions or comments.
So if I'm 76 now and I haven't had that disability, then how long am I going to live?
That's what we get to find out together. If I could predict how long an individual is going to live, I could either make a lot of money or be the most hated person in the world. I don't know. It depends how you look at it. But if, the hope is that, well, you've already kind of blown the average statistic out of the water, right, from the morbidity standpoint, and you're at the mortality one as well. So, the hope is that you reach full human potential, which is science and the Bible both say is around 120 years. So if you can live to 120 with quality, that's not as scary as living to 120 on a respirator, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't want to be on the respirator.
No,
that's not in my cards.
Correct. I don't think any of us want that. I think if you asked people out on the street, they'd rather live to 75 or even 70 with full functional health than 95 with the last 20 years being, nursing home and wheelchair and that sort of thing. And so that's our goal, and that's what you're role modeling. So keep it up. And then Mary, that's what you and I are trying to achieve, right?
Yes.
So,
because I've lost family members to a very young age.
Yeah. And those, was it heart disease?
Yes.
Yeah. And so again, heart disease, cardiovascular disease is very, the majority of the contributing factors are going to be lifestyle induced. And so again, if we can take action, we can prevent a majority of those early deaths, or at least delay them. Again, right? Give those people more life and more quality, and give them time with their families. So I applaud you guys for being here, for taking the actions you're taking, and for, whether you realize it or not, role modeling for your loved ones. Because Janine, you're doing it for your family and your friends. Mary, you're doing it for your family and your friends. I'm doing it for our family, my family and my friends, whether we notice it or not. Our actions speak louder than our words. So let's keep compressing morbidity, delaying mortality, and enjoying our life.